The sound of the scissors was louder than the organ music. Snip. It was a wet, crunching sound that seemed to echo off the vaulted ceiling of the bridal suite anteroom. I stood there, paralyzed, watching a 2-foot lock of my dark, wavy hair hit the marble floor. My scalp tingled, cold and exposed, where the steel blades had just grazed my skin. The room, filled with bridesmaids and relatives, went deathly silent. Ava, my mother-in-law, held the shears like a weapon of war, her eyes gleaming with a terrifying mixture of malice and satisfaction. "There," she said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "Now you won't look like such a harlot walking down the aisle to my son. I told you marigold updos require structure. This is for your own good." I looked at Ansel, my groom, the man I was minutes away from pledging my life to. He was standing right there, adjusting his cufflinks. He saw the hair on the floor. He saw the tears instantly welling in my eyes. He saw his mother holding the scissors. He didn't scream. He didn't step between us. He just looked down at his watch and mumbled, "Mom, we're running late. Just fix it fast." The betrayal hit me harder than the loss of my hair. I turned to the mirror. One side of my head was chopped to the ear, jagged and raw. I looked like a broken doll. Ava smirked in the reflection, waiting for me to crumble. I wiped a tear, my jaw tightening until it hurt. I wasn't going to give her the show she wanted. Not yet. I grabbed my friend Olivia's arm and dragged her into the private changing stall, slamming the lock home. Outside, I could hear Ava laughing, telling the others, "She's just being dramatic. It's just hair." The sound of her voice made my blood boil, hot and thick in my veins. I was shaking, not from sadness anymore, but from a rage so pure it felt like clarity. "Marigold, oh my God," Olivia whispered, her hands hovering over the disaster on my head. "We have to call it off. We have to leave. She assaulted you." "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "If I leave, she spins the narrative. She becomes the martyr and I become the runaway bride. I'm not running." I looked around the room frantically. My eyes landed on the high shelf where the stylist had left her emergency kit. There, perched on a styrofoam head, was a high-quality wig, a long, dark style almost identical to what my hair had been 5 minutes ago. It was meant for the reception backup, just in case. Olivia followed my gaze. She grabbed it, her eyes widening. "You're going to wear it." "I'm going to wear it," I said, sitting down and gripping the chair. "Pin it tight, Olivia, make it look perfect. They think they broke me. They'll never see this coming." Olivia worked with frantic precision, gluing and pinning until the damage was completely hidden. When I stood up, I looked exactly like the bride I was supposed to be. But underneath the silk and lace, I was preparing for war. The organ music swelled, signaling the start of the procession. I stepped out of the dressing room, clutching my bouquet of white roses so hard the thorns dug into my palms through the ribbon. The hallway was empty. Everyone had taken their places. I walked toward the sanctuary doors, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. As the doors swung open, the sea of faces turned toward me. I saw the confusion ripple through the front rows where the family sat. They had seen the butchered hair. Now they saw a perfect, flowing mane. Ava's jaw actually dropped. She nudged the woman next to her, her eyes narrowing as she tried to figure out the trick. Ansel stood at the altar, looking relieved, likely thinking I had miraculously fixed it or that he had imagined the severity of the cut. I walked slowly. Every step was a promise to myself. The air in the church felt heavy, suffocating with the weight of the lie everyone was participating in. I locked eyes with Ava as I passed her pew. She recovered from her shock and offered me a smug, tight-lipped smile. I heard her whisper loudly to her sister, "See." She realized I was right. At least she finally looks decent. Ansel reached out his hand as I ascended the altar steps. His palm was sweaty. I let him take my hand, but I didn't squeeze back. The priest began to speak about love, honor, and protection. The irony tasted like ash in my mouth. I waited. The timing had to be perfect. "Do you, Marigold, take Ansel to be your lawfully wedded husband?" the priest asked, his voice booming in the quiet church. The silence that followed stretched out, thin and taut as a wire. I looked at Ansel. He was smiling that boyish smile that used to melt me, but now all I saw was the coward who checked his watch while his mother assaulted me. I looked at Ava in the front row, looking triumphant, straightening her expensive hat. I started, my voice trembling for effect. I let a small, shy smile play on my lips. Then, in one fluid, violent motion, I reached up. I grabbed the edge of the wig at my hairline and ripped it off. The sound of the Velcro and clips tearing loose was audible. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. I threw the wig onto the floor between us. My hair, chopped jaggedly to the scalp on the left side, with long, uneven strands hanging on the right, was exposed for every camera and every guest to see. It was ugly. It was raw. It was the truth. Ansel recoiled as if I'd slapped him. I turned to the congregation, my voice projecting clearly without the microphone. "This is what your son's family did to me 20 minutes ago," I said, pointing at my scalp. "Ava cut my hair to fix me," and Ansel watched. The church erupted. The shock in the room was palpable, a physical force. I saw phones raising, flashes going off. Ava stood up, her face a mask of purple fury, but I stood tall, feeling a rush of power I had never known. "You ungrateful little brat," Ava shrieked, her voice cracking as she stomped into the aisle. The facade of the elegant matriarch shattered instantly. "After everything I paid for, you ruined this day on purpose." The priest looked back and forth, completely lost, holding his Bible like a shield. "Perhaps we should," he stammered, but no one was listening. I didn't look at Ava, I looked at Ansel. "Well," I asked, "are you going to defend me now, or are you going to check your watch again?" Ansel looked at his mother, then at me. His face crumpled. He didn't step toward me. He turned and ran down the aisle toward Ava, grabbing her arm. "Mom, calm down, please, everyone is looking," he pleaded, his back turned to me. That was the answer. It was the only closure I needed. I dropped the bouquet right on top of the discarded wig. "I'm done," I said. I turned and walked back down the aisle alone. The guests parted for me like the Red Sea, their faces a mix of horror and pity. But I didn't want their pity. I kept my head high, exposing the jagged cuts. Near the back, I saw a guest, Sybil. A cousin of Ansel, who I knew hated Ava, holding her phone up, recording everything. She caught my eye and gave me a subtle, grim nod. I burst through the church doors into the sunlight, took a deep breath of fresh air, and didn't look back. I didn't go to the hotel. I went straight to Olivia's apartment. We spent the night drinking cheap wine and eating pizza while I cried the last of my tears. I thought it was over. I thought the worst part was the wedding itself. I was wrong. By midnight, my phone started vibrating so hard it nearly fell off the table. Sybil had uploaded the video. She titled it simply, "Mother-in-law scalps bride, groom does nothing." It was everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. The hashtag wedding wig was trending #1 globally, millions of views. The comments were rolling in faster than I could read them. "Divorce him before you marry him. That mill belongs in jail. Look at the groom running to mommy. DODGED a bullet." I woke up the next morning to thousands of DMs. Strangers were offering to pay for hair extensions, lawyers were offering advice, and stylists were offering makeovers. But amidst the support, a text from Ansel popped up on my screen. "You embarrassed my mother in front of the whole town. You're sick. We need to talk about how you're going to fix this reputation damage." I stared at the screen, baffled by his delusion. Before I could even think of a reply, an unknown number called. I answered, putting it on speaker. "Is this Marigold?" a sharp, male voice asked. "I represent Ava Vance. We are filing a suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation. We advise you to take down any online content immediately." "Defamation?" I laughed, a bitter, jagged sound that scraped my throat. "I didn't post the video, and how is it defamation if I just showed people what she did to me? It's the truth." "Truth is a defense, but litigation is expensive, Ms. Marigold," the lawyer droned smoothly. "Mrs. Vance is willing to settle if you issue a public apology and sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding the events of yesterday." I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but Olivia grabbed them. "Don't you dare apologize," she said firmly. "She assaulted you. If anything, you should be suing her." "She has money, Olivia. Ansel's family is loaded. They can bury me in court fees," I said, panic starting to set in. Then we fight them in the court of public opinion, Olivia said, pulling up my Instagram. Tell your side. Sybil's video is just the clip. Give them the context. I hesitated. Then I remembered the text from Ansel. Fix this. I opened my laptop to check the wedding contracts, looking for any liability I might have since Ava paid for the venue. That's when I saw it. The venue contract wasn't with a third party. The venue, the Gilded Rose, was owned by a holding company. I ran a quick search. The holding company was owned by Ava Vance. She hadn't just paid for the wedding, she had paid herself. But the contract I signed had a clause, deposit forfeited in full for any misconduct by the bridal party. She had set this up. She knew she'd push me. I scanned the document closer, my eyes narrowing. The misconduct clause was standard, but there was an addendum at the bottom regarding property damage liability that required a secondary signature. My signature was there. But it wasn't my handwriting. The loop on the M was too wide. The slant was wrong. I pulled out my driver's license and compared them. It was a forgery. A clumsy one, probably done in a rush. Ava must have added the clause after I signed the original, realized she needed a countersign and faked it. She forged my signature, I whispered to Olivia. She wanted to make sure that if I fought back, she could keep every dime of the money my parents contributed to the catering. My parents had put down $10,000 for the food. Ava had claimed she handled the transaction. She was planning to steal my parents' money using a clause she faked. This wasn't just a bad mother-in-law. This was a predator. She wants a war, I said, taking a picture of the forged signature. She just handed me the ammunition. I looked at the lawyer's number on my phone. They wanted silence. I was going to give them a symphony. I set up my phone on Olivia's kitchen counter. No ring light, no filters. I sat there in a borrowed, oversized hoodie, my chopped hair visible and unstyled. I hit record. My name is Marigold, I began, my voice steady but quiet. And yesterday, the woman who was supposed to be my mother-in-law held scissors to my head while her son checked his watch. I spoke for 10 minutes. I detailed the months of passive-aggressive comments about my appearance, the control over the dress, and finally, the moment in the bridal suite. I didn't yell. I didn't name-call. I just told the story. I posted it. Within an hour, it had surpassed Sybil's video. The internet rallied. But then, Ava fired back. She released a professionally edited video sitting on a velvet couch, wiping away invisible tears. She claimed I had been hysterical and asked for a trim, then regretted it and blamed her. She called me unstable. The comments on her video were mixed. Some people believed her crocodile tears. My heart sank. Then, a notification popped up on my video. A top comment from a user named Sarah Vansex. She did the same thing to me 6 years ago. She poured red wine on my dress 5 minutes before the ceremony and claimed I was drunk. I'm Ansel's brother's ex-wife. DM me. I stared at the comment. Ansel didn't have a brother. He was an only child. I messaged the woman immediately. Ansel doesn't have a brother. Her reply came instantly. He did. My husband, Julian, he died 3 years ago. Ava erased him from the family narrative because he stood up to her. Has she never mentioned Julian? A chill went down my spine. I had been with Ansel for 2 years. He had never mentioned a brother. The woman, Tatum, sent me a folder of photos. There she was, young and smiling, with a man who looked exactly like an older version of Ansel. And there was Ava, standing between them, gripping Julian's arm possessively. She ruins everyone, Marigold, Tatum wrote. She sabotaged my wedding, then she sabotaged our marriage. When Julian died in a car wreck, she sued me for his life insurance and won because of a technicality she engineered. She's evil. You need to team up with me. I was reading the messages when an email arrived. It was a cease and desist from Ava's lawyer, specifically mentioning communications with estranged relatives. She was watching me. She knew Tatum had reached out. My phone rang. It was Ansel again. I shouldn't have answered, but I needed to hear his voice, to see if there was any humanity left. Marigold, please, he sounded desperate, crying. Mom is just stressed. She's old. You know how she gets. Why are you digging up the past? Who is this Totem person? You have a brother, Ansel, I said coldly. Why did you tell me you were an only child? We don't talk about Julian. He was troubled. Mom tried to help him, but he and that woman, they were toxic. Marigold, baby, come home. We can fix the hair. I'll buy you the best extensions. Just take down the video. You knew, I realized, the horror washing over me. You knew she was going to cut my hair. You weren't surprised. Silence on the line. She told me it was just a trim, he whispered. She said your ends were split. She just wanted you to look perfect for the photos. I'm not a doll, Ansel, I screamed. I hung up and started scrolling through our old texts, searching for keywords. I found a conversation from 3 months ago. Ansel to me. Baby, maybe you should cut your hair for the wedding. Mom thinks it overwhelms your face. Then I checked his iPad, which he had left at my apartment weeks ago. I guessed his passcode easily. I found his texts with Ava. Ava, her hair is trashy. It ruins the aesthetic. If she doesn't cut it, I will. Ansel, just don't make a scene, Mom. Deal with it quietly. He had given her permission. I felt sick. The man I loved had authorized his mother to assault me to fit an aesthetic. I screenshotted everything. The texts, the timestamps, the admission of premeditation. Olivia, I called out, call Rosalind. Rosalind was our college roommate, now a vicious corporate lawyer who lived for destroying bullies. I forwarded the files to her. This is gold, Rosalind said over speakerphone, her voice sharp. We have conspiracy to commit assault. We have the forgery evidence you found, but we need to hit them before they scrub their digital footprint. I refreshed Ansel's social media. User not found. He had deleted his accounts. Smart. But Ava was arrogant. She posted again, this time a written statement on her charity's Facebook page. It is deeply saddening that a young woman with a history of mental instability would target a grieving family. Marigold has been off her medication, and we pray she gets help. She was doubling down on the crazy ex trope. She was trying to destroy my employability, my reputation, my life. She just claimed medical facts she can't prove, Rosalind said. That's libel per se, but we need the smoking gun. We need to prove she didn't just trim it impulsively. The venue, I said. The bridal suite has security cameras. I saw the dome in the corner. Ava owns the venue, Olivia pointed out. She'll delete the footage. Not if the server is off-site, Rosalind said. I have a contact at the security firm they use. It's a third-party vendor. If I subpoena it now, they have to preserve it. But that takes days. I can get it tonight, a voice came from the doorway. It was Olivia's boyfriend's brother, a tech guy who had been quietly listening from the couch. If they use the default cloud portal, and I have the venue name. He typed furiously for 20 minutes. It was gray area legal, but I didn't care. Got it, he said. We crowded around the laptop. The black and white footage showed the anteroom. It showed Ava hiding the scissors in her sleeve before she entered the room. It showed her whispering to Ansel, him nodding, and turning his back intentionally before she even struck. It was premeditated. It was an ambush. Save it, Rosalind commanded. I'm scheduling a press conference for tomorrow morning. We're not just suing, we're ending her. The press conference was chaos. Rosalind stood in front of the microphones, looking like an executioner in a Chanel suit. We played the security footage on a large screen. The moment Ava pulled the scissors from her sleeve, the room gasped. The narrative of the caring mother trying to help evaporated instantly. We released the forged contract signature. We released the texts from Ansel. By noon, Ava's world began to crumble. 2 of the major charities she chaired released statements distancing themselves from her. The bridal venue's Yelp page was review-bombed into oblivion. Ansel's employer, a finance firm, placed him on indefinite unpaid leave. But Ava wasn't done. At 2:00 p.m., an anonymous account on Twitter leaked photos. Private photos. Photos I had sent to Ansel in confidence, boudoir shots meant for his eyes only. The innocent bride isn't so innocent, the caption read. I stared at my naked body plastered across the internet. I felt like the floor was opening up to swallow me. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to hide. She's trying to shame you into silence, Olivia said, her voice shaking with rage. I stood up. I looked at the reflection in the mirror, short hair, tired eyes, but standing. It's just a body, I said, my voice hardening. She thinks shame works on me. She doesn't know who I am anymore. I retweeted the leak myself. I added a caption. My body is not shameful. Your son's betrayal is. Nice try, Ava. The move backfired on her spectacularly. Instead of slut-shamming, the internet hailed it as a power move. The support was deafening. Women started sharing their own stories of controlling families, of body shamming, of privacy violations. I realized this was bigger than just my wedding. I started a dedicated page, Brides with Boundaries. Within 48 hours, it had 50,000 followers. I spent my days boosting other women's stories, turning my pain into a platform. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a leader. Then an email came through the website's contact form. Subject, grant proposal. Ms. Marigold, I represent a donor who wishes to remain anonymous, but wants to fund your legal defense and the establishment of your nonprofit. He has been following the Ava Vance case for years. He says you are the first one to make her bleed. I showed it to Rosalind. Is this real? The funds are verified, she said, looking at her laptop. A wire transfer of 200 grand is sitting in escrow. Who is this guy? I insisted on meeting the donor. The intermediary set it up at a quiet coffee shop on the edge of town. I walked in, expecting an old businessman. Instead, a man in his early 30s stood up. He had messy brown hair, tired eyes, and a worn leather satchel. I'm not the donor, he said, extending a hand. I'm Cedric. I'm an investigative journalist. The donor is my publisher. We've been trying to nail the Vance family for a decade. Why? I asked. Because Ava isn't just a mean mother-in-law, Cedric said, lowering his voice. She's a blackmailer. I have a file on her, Marigold, but I was missing the link to her personal finances. You found the shell company, the venue holding group. That was the key. He slid a manila envelope across the table. She's been blackmailing the families of her son's girlfriends for years, but it goes deeper. She targets wealthy families, gets her hooks in, and when things go south, she threatens to expose secrets she's gathered. She did it to Totem's family. She did it to a senator's daughter 5 years ago. What do you need me for? I asked. You have standing, Cedric said. You're currently in litigation with her. You can subpoena the financial records I can't touch legally. Cedric and I spent the next week in a war room mode at Rosalind's office. We used the lawsuit discovery process to demand the records for the Gilded Rose and its parent company. Ava's lawyers fought it, but the judge, swayed by the public outcry and the clear evidence of forgery, granted the order. When the documents arrived, Cedric's eyes lit up. Look at this, he pointed to a recurring transfer. Cayman Islands, a shell company called JV Holdings. Julian Vance, I asked, the dead brother. Exactly, Cedric said. But Julian is dead. The money is still moving. She's siphoning money from her husband's life insurance and her charity funds into an account under her dead son's name to avoid taxes and wait. He typed a code into his database. This account is linked to the insurance payout from her husband's death. Marigold, her husband didn't die of a heart attack like the papers said. It was an accidental fall. The payout was double indemnity. Are you saying she killed him? I whispered. I'm saying she committed insurance fraud at the very least, Cedric said grimly. And if we dig enough, we might find out why he fell. The deeper we dug, the more dangerous it felt. Ava wasn't posting videos anymore. She had gone silent. That was scarier. One evening, I was leaving Rosalind's office when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You're looking where you shouldn't. Julian didn't listen either. Walk away, Marigold. I froze on the sidewalk. I looked around. A black sedan was parked across the street, idling. As soon as I looked at it, it peeled away into traffic. I called Cedric. She threatened me. She mentioned Julian. Get to a safe place, Cedric said, his voice urgent. She knows we found the money. This is the tipping point. She's not protecting a reputation anymore. She's protecting her freedom. I drove home, taking random turns to ensure I wasn't followed. When I got to my apartment building, the front door was ajar. My apartment had been tossed. Furniture was overturned, cushions slashed. My laptop was gone. My physical files were gone. But they hadn't found the backup drive I kept taped inside the toilet tank, a trick Cedric had taught me. I stood in the center of the chaos, heart pounding. Then I saw it. On the floor near my bedroom door was a single long gray hair, and the smell, that cloying, expensive floral perfume Ava wore. She had been here. She hadn't sent a goon. She had come herself. She wanted me to know she could touch me. I grabbed the hard drive and a bag of clothes. I wasn't staying here. I drove to Cedric's safe house, a cabin his uncle owned an hour out of the city. She's desperate, Cedric said as he barred the door. She knows the walls are closing in. She was in my bedroom, Cedric, I said, shivering. We end this tomorrow, he said, putting a hand on my shoulder. We leak the fraud documents to the FBI and the press simultaneously. No more waiting. We dropped the bomb at 9:00 a.m. The headlines screamed, Socialite Ava Vance linked to massive insurance fraud and charity embezzlement. The internet exploded again, but this time it wasn't just gossip. It was criminal. My phone rang. It was Ansel. Marigold, please, he was sobbing, incoherent. They're at the house. The police are at the house. You have to tell them it's a misunderstanding. You're destroying our family. I didn't destroy anything, Ansel, I said, my voice cold as ice. You watched your mother sharpen the knife for years. You just never thought she'd cut you too. She's gone, he panicked. She took the car. She left me here with the feds. Marigold helped me. She left you, I asked. She cleared the safe and ran. She left me to take the fall for the charity funds. You did that yourself, I said. Good luck, Ansel. I hung up. Ava was on the run. The manhunt lasted 6 hours. They caught her at a private airfield in a neighboring state. She was trying to board a chartered flight to non-extradition country using a passport under her maiden name. The footage of her arrest was broadcast live. She was in handcuffs, her wig askew, ironic, screaming at the officers that she was being persecuted. I watched it from Cedric's couch, a strange calmness washing over me. Ansel was arrested too as an accessory to the fraud. He folded immediately. To save his own skin, he testified against his mother. He gave them the passwords, the locations of the ledgers, everything. He sold her out faster than he had sold me out. It was pathetic. It was poetic. The trial was the event of the year. I had to testify about the assault and the forgery. When I walked into the courtroom, Ava was sitting at the defense table. She looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit, stripped of her designer armor, but her eyes were still vicious. As I passed the table, she leaned forward. You'll never be free of me, she hissed. I made you famous. I stopped. The old Marigold would have trembled. The new Marigold, the one with short, chic hair and a backbone of steel, just smiled. I already am free, I said calmly, and you're just a cautionary tale. I sat in the witness stand and told the truth. I looked at Ansel in the gallery, head in his hands. I felt nothing for him. No hate, no love, just indifference. The power had shifted completely. I wasn't the girl crying over a haircut anymore. I was the woman who took down a dynasty. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Fraud, embezzlement, forgery, assault. Ava was sentenced to 15 years. Ansel got probation and community service in exchange for his testimony, but his reputation was incinerated. He tried to approach me after the sentencing, holding a bouquet of cheap gas station flowers. Marigold, can we just talk? I'm free of her now. We can start over. I looked at the flowers, then at him. I'm not a rehabilitation center for broken men, Ansel. Do not contact me again. I walked away. Cedric was waiting for me by his car. He didn't have flowers. He had a coffee and a file folder, our next case for the nonprofit. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm great," I said. "Listen," Cedric rubbed the back of his neck. "Now that the case is over, professional ethics don't really apply. I think you're the bravest person I've ever met." I smiled, taking the coffee. "Ask me out to dinner, Cedric." "Dinner," he grinned. "Dinner." 8 months later. The ceremony was small, a cliffside overlooking the ocean. No church, no organ, no hundreds of guests, just Olivia, Rosalind, Totem, and a few close friends. I wore a simple white slip dress. My hair was a bob now, healthy and shiny, dancing in the wind. Cedric stood under the arch, looking handsome and nervous. "Do you, Marigold?" the officiant began. I looked at Cedric. I felt safe. I felt seen. "I do," I said, but before I kissed him, I turned to the small crowd. "No one gets to rewrite me again," I said. "I write my own story." Behind us, on a small table, was a framed shadow box. Inside was the long, dark wig I had worn that day in the church. It wasn't a symbol of shame anymore. It was a war trophy. We danced under the stars. It was perfect. But as the night wound down, Rosalind approached me, looking pale. She held a letter in her hand. "This came from the prison," she said. "It's addressed to you from Ava." My stomach tightened. "Burn it." "Marigold," Rosalind said softly. "Read the front." I took the envelope. In jagged, desperate handwriting it said, "To my daughter." I stepped away from the party, walking to the edge of the cliff. The moon was full. I tore open the envelope. Inside, there was no letter, just a photograph. It was an old Polaroid, yellowed with age. It showed a young Ava in a hospital bed, holding a newborn baby. She looked exhausted but happy. I turned the photo over. "I didn't just choose you for Ansel because you were pretty. I chose you because I couldn't keep you. I gave you up for adoption 30 years ago. I wanted you close. I wanted to mold you. You deserve to know who your real mother is. It's me." The world stopped. The air left my lungs. I looked at the photo. The eyes of the baby, they were my eyes. The shape of the nose, it was hers. The obsession, the control, the immediate intense dislike masked as improvement. She wasn't just a monster-in-law. She was my biological mother who had tried to break me to make me like her. I felt a scream building in my chest, but it didn't come out. Instead, a tear rolled down my cheek. Not of sadness, but of release. She had tried to turn me into her, and in fighting her, I had become strong. But I wasn't her. I was kind. I was loved. I was free. I looked at the ocean. "You taught me exactly what not to be," I whispered to the wind. I took the lighter from my pocket, the one Cedric used for the sparklers. I lit the corner of the photo. I watched Ava's face curl and blacken, turning to ash. I let the burning remnants fall into the sea, carried away by the tide. I turned back to the lights, to Cedric, to my chosen family. "And that's why I took my power back," I said aloud, walking back toward the music. "Wig, scars, and all.